Can you guys envision anything? I know out of the gate we discussed how the college football playoff is way off in the future, can't be determined. Who knows how it's going to lay out? Some teams could play 7 conference games and some 10. I'm talking across the country. But is there any thought about how the college football playoff selection could, because somebody made the suggestion to me yesterday that it would need to be expanded if everybody, let's say what the Big Ten has put in play, goes across the Power 5, everybody just stays within conference, plays a conference season. Well, it would only make sense in terms of fairness to include all 5 conference champs, because you can't make any comparison between the 5 conference champions. But we know, as Kevin pointed out in particular, whatever football we get and whatever championship conclusion we should all be satisfied with to a certain extent. But there was some calls that I took, people wanting to play this into some kind of expanded playoff. And I said, well, we're actually in a situation where we're limiting the travel, limiting the football, limiting the exposure. I can't imagine that they would expand the playoff, even though that would be the most fair thing to do.
The first thing that comes to my mind is, where are we with coronavirus at the end of November and early December, when a theoretical playoff field and theoretical bowl games would be set? Have we quelled this to where it is manageable and is now safe to move about the country with a traveling party of 300 people and have fans? So many questions are left unanswered here, and people are being very critical of our political leaders, our school leaders, university leaders, and everybody else, because the story changes every 20 minutes. I wouldn't want to be in any of these people's shoes, because you don't know what's lurking around the corner. I'm a firm believer we need to go on with our lives and we need to take the proper precautions. I don't want it, so I'll take care of me, and I'll try and prevent myself and my family from getting it. But at the same time, I do believe kids should be in school. We need to go on with life to a degree, but will it be safe? And thinking about a postseason, it could be a situation where if this thing hasn't quelled down at all, they just say there's no postseason this year, there's no bowl games. Just vote on it with an AP poll, and they'll be declared, this year's or a coach's poll. They'll be declared this year's national champions, and that'll be that. And it'll be controversial, but it is entirely possible in my mind that if we as a society don't rein this in, that they wouldn't have bowl games this year. And particularly if you can't have people come to the games and travel to New Orleans and Pasadena to see these games in person, I know it's TV product and everything, but I don't know. It you leave a lot of money on the table by not having the playoff. We know that. So again, maybe that's a last resort, that they're going to do everything they can to preserve the 3 playoff games. And maybe there's no other bowl games this year. Maybe the only bowl games are played by the 4 playoff teams. And, if that's how it is, that's how it is. But I think it's completely, premature to know or believe anything is going to happen at this point, given how things change every 20 minutes right now.
I wanted to jump in real quick and say that I'm glad some things never change. The world may be in turmoil right now, and we're already concerned that we're going to have 5 undefeated teams at the end. I mean, that's always par for the course. There's going to be separation. I mean, things aren't going to be equal. And I'm not going to pick on this conference or that, because I know Mark brings in a wide swath of fans, and I don't get 30 DMs from people about how I hate their conference or whatever, but it'll sort itself out. But here's my proposal for the CFP is where you sit there and you just create your bubble, and the way that we're seeing the NBA or the NHL or whatever, and you do a Friday night, Saturday night semifinals on back-to-back nights. The 2 losers go home. The 2 winners stay another week, prepare, and you play the game the following week. That way you can limit their exposure to who they're coming into contact with, No, we're not going to see players at Harrah's in New Orleans, at the craps table all night or whatnot. But if we're going to get there and play this in the winter when they're concerned that everybody's freaking out that this is much more severe during cold weather than warm weather, you're going to have to kind of lock it down. And I do agree with Steve in an instance that I don't know how you have a bunch of other bowl games. I mean, maybe you have your New Year's Six or something. I don't know, but the Pool and Weed Eater Bowl and the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl and things like that, I don't see them happening this year unless we have some serious either medical breakthroughs or changes in opinions of life with COVID in our society.
Noon, are you suggesting that there's a possibility that we could spend 2 weeks in New Orleans covering the football team?
I don't know if I will. I'll go bankrupt before that happens. But
no,
we may or may not have. We don't know what media policies are going to be at this point.
But if there is just a vote on a national title, this is what you should have right after that team name. Put the asterisk next to that team name. We have learned to do so many different things, and things have changed so much for us with this pandemic. Industries are learning how to work at home. We're learning to adapt. Maybe, as Noon said, maybe this is now the time to adapt and expand a playoff. It would require some extreme things, but we are learning how to do that. Kids don't need to be in classes for, at least college kids. Regular kids should still be in classes because Lord knows I've seen how people try to teach their own kids and it don't work. But the college kids, with all of the support they have, if they're in a bubble for 2 weeks playing a couple of games, I don't think that's the end of the world. They're going to be in classes. If classes are even ongoing, there's going to be a break, semester breaks at some point there. We are adapting right now. Maybe this is another adaptation we can make because we know we're going to go to 8 teams eventually in the playoffs. Maybe you just pull the Band-Aid off and do it this year. May not be the best year to do it because, Mark, as you said, do you really want all of these teams to be traveling? But, we're learning how to do things in a different way now. And maybe this is also a time where the sport could use some monetary infusion, and a couple extra playoff games would certainly do that.
Yeah, David Greenshield brings up the financial aspect here about if those bowl games are lost. I just read Indiana provided their financial report on the Gator Bowl. They brought in $3 million and they spent exactly $3 million. They didn't make any money. They didn't lose any money on going to the Gator Bowl. I think it was like 2.5, something like that. They broke it down line by line: travel, food, hotel, had to buy $90,000 worth of game tickets, etc. So when we say lose money on bowls, the only bowls that pay the colleges are the New Year's Six. You break even on everything else. Maybe you make a few extra dollars on the Capital One Citrus Bowl or the Outback Bowl, just because those are more prime TV spots than the rest of them. But even then, they've been cannibalized because they now play a New Year's Six game up against it at noon on New Year's Day. So, there are bowls that where schools make money, and then there are bowls where schools just play in it and hope to break even. And that's even been a struggle over the years, as we all know. They make so much money off the playoff that that everybody does make some money off the playoff, which is good, or the New Year's Six, I suppose, that entire format. Regarding the small schools, I agree. And maybe Tony has something here where if they go to an 8-team playoff, they can subsidize the MAC and some of these other places with at least a few dollars to kind of keep them running to get them to 2021 when theoretically you need them again. We say they don't need to buyout games or whatever, but that buyout game where they pay Buffalo $1.5 million to come in and get drubbed 44-10, they make about $8 million on that. So, it's still vital part of if you have 100,000 people there. So, this year with nobody in the stands, theoretically, or a small crowd, right now it sounds like there'll be nobody in the stands at any of these games unless something drastically changes, that's why they canceled those games. Obviously, maybe an 18 playoff, as Tony said, would provide a few dollars for some of the group of five conferences in those schools.